Welcome to the Election Assistance Commission's training on election mail. In this training, we will discuss how to work with the United States Postal Service, designing and preparing election mail, communicating with voters about election mail, and handling mail safely. Any item mailed to or from authorized election officials that help citizens participate in the voting process is considered election mail. This includes ballots, as well as things like applications, voter registration confirmations, and other notifications. It's important to note that election mail is different from political mail. Mail from campaigns, parties, and other advocates is not official election mail, even if it is aimed at voters or relates to an election. That's why it's so important for election officials to use the official election mail logo. This logo, which can only be used by election officials, helps voters and Postal Service staff recognize your mailings as official communications. Now, let's talk about working with the United States Postal Service. Like any other partner in the election process, it's important to form a relationship with your Postal Service contacts well before the election. Get to know your local postmaster and the manager of customer relations assigned to your region. You can find a list of managers of customer relations on the Postal Service election mail website at usps.com/electionmail. If you send mail in bulk, it's also a good idea to make contact with the staff at the regional processing center that handles your mail. Once you've established relationships in each Postal Service office, it's helpful to give them a window into your work. They may not know a lot about election mail, and processes can change from election to election too. Explain things like expected mailing dates and the approximate volume of mail you anticipate sending. You can even provide a calendar of when you expect to mail ballots and other election mail. What your outbound and return mail pieces look like. Consider providing pictures or examples if you can. Your state's rules and deadlines about the receipt of mail ballots, and whether postmarks are necessary for ballots to be counted in your state, or if other data, like scans of intelligent mail barcodes, can be used if postmarks are missing. It can also be helpful to discuss past challenges and brainstorm solutions with your Postal Service counterparts. Finally, provide a point of contact for your office and ask for one of theirs. This will be the point person who handles all incoming communication from the other side. Exchange phone numbers, email addresses, and work schedules so that you'll know how to get a hold of each other. If time permits, you can even set up a standing check-in meeting to touch base every few weeks. When designing and preparing election mail, there are a few key things to remember. We've already talked about one of them. Be sure to include the election mail logo on your official mailings. If you have questions about where and how to use the logo, you can find more information in Postal Service Publication 631, which discusses graphic guidelines and logos. Once a design for your envelopes, postcards, and other mailers is available, work with a Postal Service Mailpiece Design Analyst to check for any red flags. You can find an analyst by emailing mda@usps.gov. Mail processing is heavily automated, so making sure that Postal Service equipment can correctly read and interpret information on your mailings is critical for them to be delivered correctly and in a timely manner. We recommend you do this check once a year, even if you've used the same design successfully in the past. You might also consider using intelligent mail barcodes on your mailings to make them traceable through the mail stream. Intelligent mail barcodes are unique to each piece of mail and contain information identifying the sender, the mail piece, and the destination. When added by the sender before mailing, these barcodes are scanned by Postal Service equipment at different points in the mailing process. These scans can then be used to track each piece of mail. This tracking can help reassure voters that their ballot is moving through the mail, and it can also help you identify any problems with your election mail. Election offices may use a mail or ballot tracking vendor to set up and streamline the process of creating and applying these barcodes. When you're ready to mail ballots, be sure to mark each sack or tray with a green Tag 191. These tags make your ballots more visible to postal workers. You can order them for free at usps.com/electionmail. Remember, a Tag 191 is only for ballots, not other pieces of election mail. Be sure to inform voters about key dates and mailing times. Provide clear, consistent, and timely information about how to request, mark, and return a ballot. Help voters understand the return deadlines ballots must meet to be counted, including whether ballots must be received by your office or postmarked by specific dates. The Postal Service recommends that voters mail ballots back at least 1 week before the return deadline to ensure they are delivered on time. If postmarks are a requirement in your state, remind voters they can ask postal employees to hand cancel their envelopes at their local post office. If voters have multiple options for returning their ballot, explain these options and when each one might be most appropriate. As Election Day gets closer, you may want to highlight return or voting options that don't rely on the Postal Service. Finally, make a plan to process inbound election mail safely. While it's unlikely that you'll encounter potentially hazardous materials while processing election mail, it's important to take some basic precautions and have a plan, just in case. Train staff on the basics of identifying and handling suspicious mail, as well as responding to potential toxic exposure. The Postal Service provides visual guides that can be displayed anywhere you process mail to help guide staff in the event of an emergency. Here are a few best practices for processing election mail safely. Process mail in a location that is isolated, ideally with direct access to the outside of the building, and with doors that allow the space to be closed off from other parts of the building. Keep personal protective equipment on hand, including aprons, masks, and nitrile gloves, and stock several doses of naloxone, also known as Narcan, in your office first aid kit. Election officials can refer to the Postal Inspection Service's Guide to Mail Center Security for more information and best practices. For these and other resources about election mail, visit the following links provided in this video: the Election Assistance Commission's, or EAC, resource page, the Postal Service's election mail page, and the Postal Inspection Service's election mail page. This concludes our training on the basics of election mail. As always, thank you for your work in elections, and thank you for watching.